One of the things for the public to understand is that we have to come to the decision on these things tonight. We can't go back to the drawing board. And I will tell you that we spent 3 arduous days going over every line item. Everyone had a chance to talk about them. I tend to believe what has been said. We didn't miss very much that got away from us or that could have been cut. I also highly sympathize with what Mr. Kramer says, because I do believe that we have more money in the reserves than we need. But I also know that Mr. Old is a banker. I know he looks at it as a banker. And I know that without a policy to make an ad hoc decision to take money out of that would be a poor idea. So therefore, I will propose under Section A a tax rate of 2.38. That's 2.38. And that would be an increase of $34 for every $100,000 valuation. So if your house is worth $300,000, the City of Vero Beach tax, if that, my proposal is seconded and adopted, would increase your tax $100 on a $300,000 house. My proposal then is to set the tax rate for next year at 2.38. Is there a second?
So if that's your motion, we need to go ahead and just read Section 2 into the record of this ordinance with the percentage over rollback as it would read.
Okay.
Before that motion gets seconded or voted upon. So essentially what you're proposing for this ordinance is that the fiscal year 2015-2016 operating millage rate of 2.3800 levied hereby is greater than the rolled back millage rate of 1.9124 by 24.45%. That is how Section 2 would read.
Wonderful. I don't want any, but there it is. Is there a second?
I have a question for Ms. Lawson before we go for it. Ms. Lawson, is this the final rate? Can you explain to us about the second hearing?
It's an excellent question. This is not your final decision. This is your second to final decision. You will have a final public hearing on September the 15th. At that point, you will set a final millage rate and budget. You, as we talked about before, can go down from here. You just cannot go up from here.
So, okay, thank you.
So you will have another shot at this.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Is there discussion? And by the way, we have to open up for public comment, I believe.
No, you had public comment, and you've actually got a motion on the floor now.
Okay. Discussion by council. Seeing none, I'll call the motion. Mrs. Bach.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mayor Winger?
Yes, it passes 3-2. What do we have to do on B then?
What we would have to do on B is be specific about the changes we need to make to the budget so that it supports this lowered tax rate. And I think that the city manager and I are prepared to do that. So essentially, you would be voting to adopt a budget amended as follows. The ad valorem taxes would be, instead of the $5,982,000 that are shown in the budget, they would be $5,385,590. We would eliminate the $450,000 transfer to the capital construction fund. We would eliminate the line item for dune restoration and certainly pay for that, obviously, as needed. We would also propose, I think, to reach your rate to eliminate one police officer, which would be the other $52,000 that we would need in order to reach the tax rate of 2.38.
Do we need a vote?
If the vote would, if that works for you, there would be a vote to adopt the budget as amended, as I just stated. Eliminate the 450, eliminate the 45, and eliminate one additional police officer with the ad valorem tax rate that you just established.
What if we there's a surplus of 65
This already takes into account using that surplus of 65.
Oh, okay.
If you at the tax rate that we just arrived at, you'll have a small surplus. It won't be 65. It might be 15 to 20, but it would still, to get you there without going into the negative, you would need to eliminate that one police officer. Would be the extra 50 grand or so that you need.
Okay.
And the city manager may have another proposal or another comment.
Could I
about that.
could I suggest something different? And that is keeping the policeman and not hiring a new lawyer.
That is only about 33,000, so you would need a little bit more on top of that, probably.
You could do that and eliminate the parking specialist. What is that?
That's 11,500 in part-time salaries, so the two things combined would get you there. Essentially, absent the 450,000, the 45, and the 50 we already talked about, you're short around $50,000 at that tax rate of going into deficit spending.
And so we've covered what, if you took the attorney and the parking specialist, what is your number there?
If you took the attorney and the parking specialist, you would be at 40, about 33 plus 12, 45, around close to 50. And again, you still have a tiny fund balance of like 15,000 or so that's going to kind of take
So
up
that would get us there if that's what
the
you want.
slack.
Yeah.
You can make a motion if you want.
Could I make a motion to that?
We have to have public comment, though, too.
Okay.
You should, yes.
Mr. Digg, please come forward. Or anyone come forward. Help.
Thank you. Ken Daigle, 1846 21st Avenue. Question for Mr. City Manager on eliminating a police position. By doing that, I understand it's going to be the parking enforcement officer. Now, the way Chief Curry explained to you all when you're all listening for the budget hearings with the zoning, will that interfere with that, where his plan was to do 2 on the island, 2 in the middle, 2 on the mainland?
No, sir. I think what the council has said, we would leave the 2 police officers in the budget.
Right.
The parking specialist, it would reduce our hours of coverage of the parking. That primarily would be the beach and down on 14th. We would have to restructure how we cover that Saturday, which
Okay,
is,
so-
and we were bringing on a part-time parking enforcement officer primarily for Saturdays.
All right, so that answers my question. His plan for the coverage will stay in place.
Yes, sir. If the 2 police officers stay in the budget.
The coverage. My other question, when you were talking about not doing the transfer for the capital outlay, I think it was $450,000. Now, when you don't do that transfer, do we still have in the budget the repairs for Leisure Square and the other needed repairs?
Yes, that's 1 cent south today.
All right, so that we will still have. Okay, thank you.
At this time, our proposal is to amend the capital project budget to reduce the paving and leave all the other projects intact, including Leisure Square.
Any further public comment? All right, I'll entertain a motion if someone has one. I don't.
Aren't we on the floor already with a motion? And I'm just
Amending it to.
I'm just amending it to
transfer
change
instead of
around some of the
losing-
expenses.
Yeah, keeping the additional police officer, but losing the attorney and the parking enforcement
Right.
specialist.
Right.
Do we need a vote on the amendment? Yeah. Or we just go with it?
You need to just have a vote on the on adopting the budget as the amended, which I think was your motion.
And
Right,
this
Kim.
is your 3B, your ordinance.
I'm sorry, was that seconded?
We were determining the actual wording of it
Hey,
first.
how about I restate what I think the amendment is that you
Okay.
have in front of
That
you
would be
right now?
great.
Is that okay with you, Wayne, procedurally, and then you can have a motion and a vote? Does that work for you? So you would be adopting the budget that you have attached to the ordinance, amended as follows: to reduce the ad valorem tax revenue to $5,385,590, to eliminate the $450,000 transfer to Fund 304 from the general fund, to eliminate the $45,000 dunes restoration expenditure line item, to eliminate the part-time parking enforcement officer and to eliminate the additional city attorney position for half of a year. And all of those things would be supported at no deficit by your already voted upon millage rate.
A motion, please.
Yes,
That's your motion, Mr.
Yep.
Old? I will second.
All right, I'll call the motion, Mrs. Bach.
Mr. Old?
yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mayor Winger?
Yes, it passes 3-0 now.
3-2.
Excuse me?
3-2. 3-2. I'm sorry. I'm getting tired. A couple other things. One, the 238 stands as the maximum. It could be reduced further at the next meeting.
That's correct, sir.
The second thing is the expense budget can be changed other than the changes that were made as long as it doesn't exceed 238. Is that correct? In other words, is it indelible, for instance, the parking officer or not?
The only thing that's set right now is that millage rate can't go up from here. So certainly you can make other amendments to the budget as you see fit. The only thing that's fixed, and throughout the coming fiscal year. But the only thing you can't change from here is you can't go higher than 2.38. You are correct.
Okay, there are 411 cities in the state of Florida. We would now rank 320th instead of 337. In other words, there are 319 that will be higher than us. Our absolute increase, if we don't go down further, is 0.34, which is, according to the Press Journal, pretty much less than almost any government county, or there are exceptions like Indian River Shores, but pretty much any county or city up and down the Treasure Coast. The 0.34 is a small number. One of the things you have to understand is if you start with if you start with a low number like 204 for whatever reason, good or bad, what happens is a percent looks bigger than it might otherwise be. And I suppose the thing I think more than anything is Mrs. Turner, Mr. Kramer, Ms. Graves, myself, Mr. Old, Mr. Brabant, Mr. Powers, and Mrs. Moss, and any of the rest of you, Mr. Day, since I see you out there, I think it's important that if you look at this budget, it isn't final now until the hearing. I believe it's 2 weeks from today. Is that correct?
September the 15th.
It's the
September
15th. I'm sorry. So it's actually a little less. But it's not final. If we can find ways to become more efficient or cut more money out of it, we certainly need to. This is very painful for me. I didn't want to be where we are, but we are where we are. We have to adopt tonight. So again, I will say that for every $100,000 of value in your house, it's $34. Most of the tax bill that everyone gets is other governments. If you have a $300,000 house, we are looking at raising your taxes $100,000.
No, $100.
$100, which I'm
Please. Let's get out of here alive.
Thank you. I have a riot on my hands. As I said, I'm tired. It's arduous work.
Move for adjournment.
We are adjourned.